Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Ben's Almanac, the only show where you can watch it being built while it's being built. I'm Mac, and this week we're going over tools for automating the actual presentation. As a reminder, last week we discussed what I called vibe coding, and that's basically when you're scripting intuitively and letting an LLM take the wheel and then formalizing once it actually works to faster but often messier results. That mindset's what leads to our discussion for this week, which is turning that intuition into something repeatable and more specific to your use case. In this case, my use case is presentations. So this week is about automating the pipeline and actually producing that content consistently. Specifically, building a presentation system that can run itself. The goal is repeatability. I want to be able to feed it text and be capable of editing and dictating where that text will fill in and what the deck will create, and then have on the opposite end of that pipeline a full deck with consistent polish. And that matters because once that backbone's in place, every future devlog, pitch, or IP deck can be auto generated from that same base. And that's when this show actually will truly kick off from this devlog, this pre work layer, into something that is a show. Now, when building a presentation pipeline, there are primarily three tools that pop up as things you should strongly consider for. And those three are Beamer and subsequently LaTeX, the Google Slides API, and then PowerPoint and Python. Python can be used at any of the layers here for especially the backend architecture, but in particular, there are modules in Python specifically designed for PowerPoint, whereas with the Google Slides API, you are pulling from something on the internet, which is where you're creating this difference. Now, we'll go into each of these three throughout this, but for a variety of reasons, and to spoil the ending now, the PowerPoint and Python combination will be what I end up using moving forward. Now, Beamer and LaTeX are more academic in nature. So, Beamer is basically a PDF compiler for slide decks. It creates slide decks, but in PDF form. And LaTeX is a specific kind of packageable, procedural scripting language that deals with formatting. And so it's most famous for mathematical notation. So if you have like a bunch of math professors and they're trying to make really consistent studies or reporting out to their various communities, then they'll often write their final pass in LaTeX. It packages up whatever they're writing and actually renders it into these very pretty mathematical notions. And because it's done that for so long and been around for so long, there are a bunch of offshoots that let you do other things with it for a variety of use cases. Beamer being one of them that's more focused on the generation of slide decks. Now, the issue for using it in my case, because this was my initial intent, was to use this combination of Beamer and LaTeX, even though I'm not doing anything math heavy. The consistency and polish of that combination is second to none. The issue, though, is that the output very quickly from what you want to put on there into what you get at the end is a PDF. And the problem with using PDFs is that it removes easy ability to edit what's going on the slide deck itself. So you can imagine if you're scrapbooking and you have a bunch of pictures and a bunch of little cutout text and, whatever, magazines and leaves and some butterfly wing or whatever have you, and you position everything on the page. And if you're working in PowerPoint or Google Slides, each of those things, it's as if it's being held in place by a magnet. And so even when you're at the end of whatever you're producing from the pipeline, you can still pick up a piece and move it, or pick up a piece and swap it out, change it right over it, whatever. But in Beamer and LaTeX, that's way harder because it's as if instead of being connected to the page by a magnet, it's like you actually glue and press the whole thing until it fused. So you can still write over your content, but you can't actually change it around particularly easily. And for my use case, there will be touch ups as we go, especially for more serious presentations such as IP overviews and the like. That just ended up outweighing its consistent polish for me. But it's a great option, especially if you're in the academic community. The next on the list is the Google Slides and their subsequent API. For those unaware, an API is like a little computer vendor. Like if you want to go and schedule a service instead of like calling up your cleaning lady, in this case it would be like cleaning.api, and you go on the web and it'll come automatically and do something on your computer. This API is used to produce Google Slide content, and Google Slide, for those unaware, is basically Google's answer to PowerPoint, but Google's business emphasis in this case is more towards the shareability. So Google Slides basically came out and outcompeted Microspace Offices in their various 360 shareable setups and produced a much smoother early shareability between people working in an office place. But the trade-off there was it's a much less polished and much younger product itself. So there's a whole set of functions, options, and connections on PowerPoint itself that Google Slides just didn't have. But a lot of businesses switched over to it anyway because they specialized in integrating it and then more broadly with their Google Suite setup. Now, for my use case as a sole proprietor, this is just not worth my time and effort because I'm not sharing these decks out more broadly, and there's less polish as well as more complexity than just using a Python internally generated PowerPoint presentation and then editing it from there, which is where we get into our third set, which is the PowerPoint and Python combination. Now, most people will know this, but PowerPoint is one of the oldest slide deck creators in the industry, and it is a very finished and polished product. Now, the reason it's listed in combination with Python here instead of an API is you can use Python to download a module, and then you create on your own computer without having to connect to the internet. You can create a PowerPoint itself, and then use PowerPoint or another service to actually load it. For my use case, this is like much faster than and much easier than trying to go through the Google API route, but it gives up some of the really crisp polish from the LaTeX layers. Now, to mitigate this, what I'll be doing is very heavy templating. So I will define probably to start off 3 to 5 slides. And you'll in fact notice that I use a rough outline even here, even if it's not the most polished at this point, precisely because I haven't made a template yet. If you look between all 3 of these, you'll notice how on the left-hand side, or I guess from the computer's angles over here, you'll see a picture or visual, and then you can see it here with the little projector and the little folder there, and the icon for Google here, and then the same for PowerPoint and Python here. I often use this combination with, on the left-hand side, a visual piece, and then on the right-hand side, some kind of text to annotate it, just to create a visual anchor for the eye. Right now, this isn't perfectly positioned on what I would do if I had infinite time and was making templates that I couldn't then use to automate this more fully. But the use of those templates where you outline precisely where a slide should be positioned and then fill in the content from there, it creates a more formulaic feel to a presentation overall, but it does allow you to output things quickly. And particularly for what I'm going for, which is a professional polish over consistent reproducible decks, that seems to be the proper balance for me. Now, I'll be experimenting this week with this more, and I'll be keeping an eye on whether or not Beamer and LaTeX are better, but due to the way the architecture is set up, the more important pieces for being able to produce this consistently is going to be these top 3 sections: the YAML, title, and storyline, having exactly what each slide will actually represent before anything's created, and then a lexicon, like a little dictionary of slide options to choose from to pull in and fill in based on what the title is and what seems to make the most sense, and then fill in the YAML itself based on whatever that lexicon's options are. Oh, and YAML, by the way, is just a way of tracking some data. It's kind of like if you have an Excel spreadsheet and then you have like headers at the top and information down below. It's a little bit like that, except the instead of having to be a table of like a fixed size, you can choose what kind of little information piece goes into each columns or how many there are. But this combination of the storyline to the lexicon to filling in each YAML piece will allow me to output to different kinds of things for the first pass, and especially since this is just like part of a like broader project. I'm really hoping to get it right the first time, and it seems like using PowerPoint, the PPTX, and Python combination is edging out over the Beamer and LaTeX one, but it will be possible to use either one depending on your needs. And if the presentation layer goes public and open source after the initial pass, then it will be pretty easy to swap around what's getting pulled based on what you needed to do. And then finally, just to close off this quick presentation this week, next week we'll cover the early testing on this. I'm looking to create 3 slides, just a simple title slide, a simple section transition slide. These are just pure proof of concepts to go from Python to PowerPoint, from YAML to Python to PowerPoint. And then a single left image, right text slide. That's going to be one of the major ones just because it's an easy, consistent piece, and it'll be nice to have a more templated version even for these devlogs. Right now, while they're all consistently equal on spacing for how I'm using it, they definitely can be designed better for a cleaner polish. So it'll be nice to just have those anyway, and then it serves as a really nice test. But that's all for this week. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Bye, everyone.